scar looking?
It's no scar anymore. It's a couple years ago, so I'm all healed up from that. I got some new scars, though, that's for sure.
So tell us about the new show on Animal Planet. What's the format going to be? What
Yeah.
are you going to be doing? How's it going to break down?
A lot of people want to know, how are you going to go from what was created on YouTube with this short-form, fast-paced animal content and transition it to television? It's a lot of the similar stuff that we had done before, but in a larger, more narrative-built story format. So some of the shows will run a 30-minute airtime, some will run an hour, depending on the story, and it all is based on which animal we're pursuing. Some animals warrant more spotlight than others, I would say, but this is definitely the next evolution of what we've done on Brave Wilderness, minus the intentional bites and stings. A lot of people were like, oh, you're going to take this to the next level? The next level is about being able to tell animal stories where I didn't have to endure through incredible amounts of pain. But of course, accidental bites and scrapes and all that still happen, so okay. I think everybody's going to be happy with the amount of seeing Coyote in pain at points in time, even though it wasn't intentional.
So I'm going to keep jumping in here, but speaking to that, so for those of us who don't know kind of your background, where did it all come from? Like, what made you decide, like, hey, I'm going to find the most painful things I can possibly find and put it on camera? That sounds like a good idea.
To be honest with you, the whole getting bitten and stung by thing, what I'm actually really good at in my job is not getting bitten and stung by thing. I would say you're not a good animal show host or presenter if you're getting bitten all the time, but right. We learned that the audience was very much interested in seeing the effects of a worst case scenario on a human subject, and then what would you go through? Because it's the scenario you never want to find yourself in. It actually began with a porcupine. I don't know if any of you saw that video. It was our first ever Coyote intentionally did something to endure pain, and we were working with a porcupine that was raised in captivity, and the handlers, before I was going to present with it, came out with these huge leather gloves on, and I was like, I don't have any gloves. Should I have gloves? They're like, no, well, you're not going to be touching it. That transitioned into a conversation about, like, well, have you been quilled? And then what do you do? And they have bestowed the knowledge upon me that most people had the wrong information when it came to removing porcupine quills from themselves or, like, the snout of a pet. And on a dime, we pivoted and said, why don't we do an episode where you get quilled? Because we asked these handlers, like, yeah, you can do it if you really want. I was like, how bad is it going to be? They're like, depends how hard the porcupine whacks it with his tail. We shot the video. It actually had really horrible production quality because of the lighting and sound issues we faced. Never were going to release it, and long story short, we ended up cutting it, and we're like, oh, it's pretty entertaining. Put it out, and that really started the whole, people like to see Coyote in pain, and then we found Justin Schmidt's Insect Sting Pain Index and created the bites and created the stings. So.
And when you're dealing with these incredibly painful pains and the stings and bites and all that, do you think to yourself, like, I regret this choice? Like, or like, are you just like, how high is your pain threshold? Like, at what point are you not like going, I really wish I hadn't done this?
Right. I mean, I would definitely say that my pain tolerance is higher than most, but then again, pain is relative to you. So, a certain pain to me might not be the same as it's to you. Oh, I know you might eat really spicy burritos.
No. I stubbed my toe. I'm on the floor for a week, so forget it.
I think there was never any moment of regret. The only points where I ever felt regret was like once pain continued for an extensive period of time, but then I just constantly remind myself that we create these videos to educate people about these animals. Like, these animal stories are not going to be told if we don't tell it in a way that's captivating, and as long as we're working education into that as well, and people are respecting these animals and saying, look, I see what it did to you. I'm going to definitely now respect this animal from a safe distance. We felt really good about it, and the audience did too. So,
what made you want to go into doing shows like this?
My background is a lot in writing, producing, and directing. So I was really a behind-the-camera guy when I was in college until we started developing this series. And we saw this opportunity to create a stylized show like Man vs. Wild. I was a huge fan of that show and Bear Grylls and what he was doing. But Bear's eating animals, right? And like, I know as a kid I would have loved the adventurous side to Bear, but the second he bites the head off a frog, I'd be like, ooh. And 8 years old, you're crying, and it's like, this is not cool. But we said, well, how do we take that fast-paced adventure that Bear instills in the audience and then make it about educating people on animals like Steve Irwin did? Because I was a huge fan of Steve, of course, growing up. So.
Cool. Can I ask, since you're at a comic convention, do you consider yourself a nerd or into like the fandom genres?
Yeah, the coolest picture I took today was actually with Sonic the Hedgehog. So I'm as big a nerd as it gets. a film nerd. I collect things that are like Steven Spielberg oriented. So I found these really awesome prints today of like from original Jaws poster, Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones, Close Encounters, and E.T. I'm totally into the culture that is Comic-Con and action figures, comic books, all that stuff. I grew up on it. I feel like I came from the heyday of Ninja Turtles and X-Men, Mario Brothers, Sonic the Hedgehog, Jurassic Park. All these things were these ingredients that took little kid Coyote and raised him into wanting to be big kid Coyote, where our brand stands for very much a lot of the same things, which action, adventure, creatures, the stranger world aspects of things. So, yeah.
With the new show, what kind of animals can we look forward to seeing in the first season, or what are some of the highlights or species that are going to be most interesting?
What a lot of people don't realize, we saw if any of you follow the YouTube channel, we continue to release content on a weekly basis, and a lot of people have asked, why aren't we getting those big animal encounters or those super exciting, super well-produced videos that you guys are putting out once or twice a month? And the honest answer is we have been saving all of the magic for this new series on Animal Planet. I mean, we have produced harder than we ever have in our lives to visit these locations. Australia, South America, the United States, all make up the 20 episodes that will come within this first season. And it was all very much about pursuing animals that we have not featured before. We do have some of the classic content like snapping turtles and some creatures you've seen before on the YouTube channel, but we really went after a lot of things that we haven't featured before and found a way to tell larger narrative stories about the adventure and what it really takes to have these animal encounters. And a lot of the trials and tribulations of also the crew. So you see the struggle that a lot of my team goes on just to get into these environments, the time that it takes to find things. Because the one thing that we really pride ourselves in with all our shows is nothing is ever fabricated, right? We don't ever take an animal out onto location and say, that one's over there. It's a turtle! This stuff takes time, and Discovery Communications and Animal Planet was just so incredibly supportive when we started the designs for the show for me to say to them, look, it may take me weeks sometimes to find an animal. And they're used to that. I mean, you have a show like River Monsters where Jeremy Wade would go out and until he caught that fish, you didn't have the episode. Right. So it's been a very fun and interesting filmmaking process, and the species that will feature this season are very vast. It's going to be awesome.
What's the worst thing you've had so far?
The executioner wasp is definitely the worst sting on my own grand scale of pain. But both the bullet ant, the Japanese giant hornet, and the executioner wasp, all of those reign on high when it comes to excruciating pain. But bites then are always worse than stings. So the bite from the giant desert centipede and the bite from a Gila monster, those are a whole nother level of pain intensity and the time that pain lasts as compared to a sting.
So how long does a pain like the bite last?
Giant desert centipede is the only bite that I ever actually had to seek medical attention from because my arm had swollen to such a size that I was I'm now having problems with circulatory and whatnot. Can't sit still. You have to walk and move every second, shaking your arm because the pain is that intense. And after 9 hours, when it hadn't gone away, I was like, all right, I'm gonna go see a doctor at this point. So, fortunately, I was fine.
And for the rest of them, you don't seek medical attention. You just pop an ibuprofen and move on, or do you just?
In a lot of the instances, my team behind the scenes makes sure that we clean up any bites or anything like that really well, and I stave off infection. Knock on wood if this is wood, incredibly well, and a lot of pre-production. There was a lot of thought that went into all of these more extreme videos, if you will. We thought about everything that we were doing and did our research beforehand to really make sure that I wasn't entering myself into a world that could catastrophically go in the wrong direction.
Is there any creature that you said no to?
For a long time, it was the giant desert centipede, and then we saw how we were transitioning our YouTube channel to come to an end with the bites and stings. We very much designed the brand to say, okay, this is where we're stopping with this, because we wanted to make this next leap to creating something like a television series for Animal Planet. When that opportunity presented itself, we were very proud of what we built on YouTube, still cherish everything that is YouTube, but as a filmmaker and a creator, getting to work with the network you watch as a little kid, you take that opportunity for sure.
Are you never going to post on YouTube again, or is that?
Oh no, we post every week on YouTube. That's been a difficult balance, producing for YouTube and producing television at the same time. I've worked harder this year than I ever had in my life, but that's my job is going to the playground every day, so I got no complaints.
What's been your favorite part of doing this show for Animal Planet?
telling the bigger stories. I mean, I know a lot of people watch the YouTube content, they're like, oh, this is, we love bites and stings, and it seems like making, digital content is so much fun. And it is, it's fantastic, and you have all this creative power when it comes to telling your story. But you're limited on time. YouTube is shifting from year to year based on their algorithms, and right now, the longer a video is, the better it's going to perform. And when we launched our YouTube channel, it was all about these like 3 to 7 minute bites of, here we are, here's the animal, let me tell you a couple of quick facts, and then you're on to the next thing. It's because people only have 7 minutes for you. But with the Animal Planet series, we're able to tell that larger narrative that we've always wanted to, and in a form and a creative factor that really puts out the message we've always been looking to tell and backs up Animal Planet's message that they're promoting as well.
What animal do you want to work with that you haven't done something with yet?
That's a good question. An animal that I haven't worked with yet. Komodo Dragons, for sure. We almost made it to Komodo this season, but based on some logistical aspects. And it's so complicated working with animals because it has to be the right time of year. Then you're also at the mercy of the environment and weather patterns and all these things. And as we know, the weather every year gets a little bit different, so it can greatly alter where you're going to land based on a production schedule. So Komodos is top of the list, and it's in the hopper for the future. We didn't do Komodo this year, but some of the other things that we featured, like, for example, something called a parenti monitor. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that species. It's the largest monitor lizard in Australia. It's essentially the Komodo dragon of Australia, and we have a pretty phenomenal episode on that lizard coming out. So we said, let's hold Komodos for another season.
You work a lot with animals. Do you ever get any kinds of comments or from people that probably don't realize how much research you do, saying things that you're mistreating them, or does that ever worry you?
Not necessarily. They're few and far between when that happens. I think we've captured the attention and the audience of such a perfect blend of young people our age, older adults, really trying to capture that family dynamic with what we do in our shows, with education and conservation as being like the double tips of the spear. We don't say any swear words. I'm an adult. Sure, I could say swear words and we could bleep things out and make it entertaining, but that's tough for a 4 or 5-year-old to watch. We want our content to be friendly for everybody, and I think people that may look at interacting with animals and stuff like that see our intentions as a very pure, honest thing, and also recognize the way that we interact with the animals, where as little stress is put on these creatures as possible. And you can see that calmness in the animals when I interact or hold them. And we only catch things when we absolutely have to, and in most instances that's for the safety of the animal, myself, and the crew. So so far so good when it comes to people supporting the work we're doing.
With the rapid change of the climate and the possibility of these creatures going extinct, do you think this show is a way for you to show the world the excitement of all these animals and these creatures, and what your thoughts of the future of the climate are?
Yeah, I mean, the future of the climate is something that's changing every single day. I mean, here in New York yesterday, it was like low 60s and raining and freezing, and I flew from Ohio where it was 85 degrees. So I got off the airplane. I was like, whoa, I only flew an hour and a half. This is crazy. I mean, we never know exactly how things are going to change, but aside from humans being impacted, animals, of course, are impacted first and foremost. And we can learn a lot about the planet and these species just by looking at the natural changes between weather and these animals. Now, are things going to go extinct? Maybe at some point. Am I going to prevent that from happening? I would like to say I hope so, but more so I'm looking at the future generations of people that we're inspiring. The 4 and 5-year-olds that watch our content and see Coyote rolling around on the ground because he was stung by a tarantula hawk. Who cares about tarantula hawks? Well, probably not many people, but that kid may grow up to become the conservationist for tarantula hawks if something catastrophic happens to nearly wipe them off the face of the planet. So I feel it's all interconnected to itself, and as long as we can get people excited about animals, we're going to inspire the right people to carry these mantles.
So you mentioned Steve Irwin earlier. Who was your biggest inspiration growing up?
It's a combination of things. Whenever people ask me that question, I say it comes from so many different facets, right? So Steve was greatly important when it came to animals, but I also grew up on a guy named Marty Stauffer who did a show called Wild America. You guys ever heard of that?
Yeah, loved it.
I mean, this is just cinematography and narration. It's Planet Earth before there was Planet Earth. Love Jeff Corwin, Jack Hanna. Austin Stevens is one of the adventurers that didn't quite have the popularity that Steve Irwin did, But Austin Stevens had amazing cinematography and storylines, and he was out there to capture photography. So there's the animal side of things, but then people like Steven Spielberg were a massive influence on me because I was so much more into filmmaking than it was anything else in like my developmental years in high school and college. I mean, I loved Jurassic Park and Jaws before I knew who Steven Spielberg was, and when I realized that his films were raising me into wanting to be a filmmaker, like that's probably my biggest influence that's impacted my career at this point.
YouTubers in general have traditionally struggled when moving to television and traditional media. So I'm curious to see how you guys are trying to, if not break the mold, at least try and, you know, thrive a bit more.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's this big misconception that when, let's just say, a YouTuber or creator in a digital space partners with a network like Discovery or Animal Planet, in thinking that, Coyote's sold out for the big bucks to go make a TV show. That is not at all the case, our relationship with Discovery Communications. We've got the most unique creative partnership that comes to them supporting the stories that I'm aiming to tell and us working as a team to make the best animal show anyone has ever seen. And it's about keeping that original grittiness that the YouTube channel had, but by adding some new spices like better camera equipment. We're taking some of those planet Earth aspects and melding those in the right way to what the grittiness was of our YouTube channel. So I think you're going to see a hybrid with this show that will work for all audiences.
So you mentioned that you work with your crew on this and you went all around the world and stuff. So how involved is Animal Planet in the final product? Is it you and the same people doing what you've been doing, or have they brought people into the mix or do they kind of just take it in what you bring them at the end and sort of package it all together?
We've kind of got a couple of different teams that make up the partnership between my company, Wilderness Productions, and Discovery Communications and Animal Planet. And it's a very unique relationship, like I said, and we're all collectively in it after the same goal. And the support that I get, again, from my creative vision side of things, you couldn't ask for the situation to be any better. So we all kind of melding pool these concepts, and they're based off of animals that Mario and I have wanted to pursue or environments that we've wanted to explore. And our job is to go out there and make the encounters happen. They trust me to tell the story and tell it the right way, knowing how to make sure that the audience is entertained, but they're also getting that right amount of education and inspiration to carry on the message of conservation. That all kind of like rhymed together. It wasn't supposed to, but it was like a crazy
At
rhyme.
what point is it going to be named the Peterson Pain Index?
Is there the Peterson Pain Index?
Yeah.
Well, you know, look,
need a petition for it.
A petition for that would probably be legitimate, but you know, look, there are people that have been bit by, I would say, more things than I have. We just found the right place and time to find a storyline where we were able to grab people's attention with animals, and that's I would say one of the toughest things in the animal world is to really get people to pay attention, and especially to some of those species that you haven't heard of before. I mean, I'm always thrilled to be that person that if someone recognizes me and they come up but they don't quite remember or know, they're like, you're that guy that got bit by that ant. I mean, there are a lot of things people could say to be like, I am that guy that got stung by that ant, so you didn't watch that closely, but no, it's cool because people are remembering these creatures.
For the younger viewers, if they wanted to get in a career like this, what would you recommend for them?
When you say career, do you mean animals?
In animals,
storytelling
yes.
in animals. Okay, because I was going to say when it comes to today's media and YouTube, that's an entirely
actually
different
both.
answer.
We'll go with both.
Both, okay, it'll be a two-part answer. So with animals, it's very much about getting involved in wildlife rehabilitation centers in your city. I have kids write to me all the time, and adults, big kids, that are like, how do I work in animals? Because everybody's like, well, how do I go get a degree for what this is? Or I can't get a job at my zoo. Every city has a wildlife rehab center that relies on volunteer support to help take care of these animals that have been injured, that are native species that need just as much attention as some of the things in other countries or conservation projects at zoos. So that's a great first place to start. And then, of course, you can teach yourself. There's such an incredible world of education out there to be had with the internet, with reading books, and with getting out into nature to explore for yourself. You go out into the wild and you begin to understand how that environment operates. When it comes to media, obviously it's all doable today. You're filming from a phone with a giant microphone that I didn't even know could go on a phone. Everybody has a camera or a recording device at their fingertips, and with a platform like YouTube to share it on, you can tell your story. It's just, do you have a good story that people are willing to listen to?
You mentioned that Steve Irwin was a big inspiration for you. You've done YouTube, you've done TV. You thinking of doing a feature film like he did?
As far as like a Coyote Peterson feature film?
Why not?
I will never say that things are impossible. If that opportunity presented itself and it was the right storyline, I guarantee you we would investigate what that is. But I definitely at some point in my career plan on going back to those behind the camera roots to tell some pretty interesting stories that I've personally written myself, and I think our audience would enjoy what those are. So.
Outside of the length of your content, how would you say the YouTube algorithm helped shape the sort of things you were creating over the past God knows how many years?
That's a good question. Here's the thing that I'll say about the YouTube algorithm, whether it exists or doesn't exist, it's kind of like a phantom, depending on who you talk to, is that no one can ever master algorithms.
Yes.
You can find yourself in the right realm of an algorithm at a certain time and maybe accomplish what we did with the Brave Wilderness channel. I could have never told you 5 years ago when we launched that YouTube channel that it would have grown to 15 million subscribers and 3 billion views, right? Like, all of that to get people excited about animals is the greatest reward we could have ever had happen to us. And I think it was right place, right time. I really do. I mean, sure, that algorithm bended in our favor, right? It was catching the right wave at the right time, but we owe it all to those animals as being the stars of those episodes. And one of the big things we pride ourselves on, which I think the audience also saw going back to that one question, is that every one of these creatures is released right back into the wild, right where it came from. It may look at our encounter together as some weird alien experience, like this crazy human abducted me, put me on his arm, I stung him, and then he let me go. And little does that bug know it's the most famous bug on the face of the planet. So, yeah, it's right place, right time.
Yeah.
With the new show, are the animals you're focusing on, are they all more typically dangerous type animals, or do you have any warm fuzzy like koala bear episodes, or is it all more of the exciting kind of?
We do have some cute and cuddly because we try to make a blend of something for everyone. Like if it was just, bugs and creepy crawlies all the time, it wouldn't diversify you as much. But when it comes to some of those cute cuddlies like the sloths or baby wombats, those are things you have to work with at wildlife centers. You never go out into the wild and say, that's a baby wombat. I'm going to go ahead and catch that one now, because you can't stress out a baby wombat like that. So it makes for a different kind of episode, but that's what's great about this series is that it has such a diversity of locations and looks, from nighttime episodes to daytime episodes to creepy things like Sydney funnel web spiders to icons like the Parenti, and even cute things like baby koalas and kangaroos and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a good mix.
As far as pets go, are you a dog guy or a cat guy?
I am
The ultimate New York question.
well, that's a great question. I have an incredible respect for cats, but cats are sneaky and very smart. So I'm currently a dog guy. I have a dog. I'm also a tortoise guy. I have a tortoise that lives on my porch. His name's Green Bean Sherman. He's the grumpiest tortoise in the world, but people love him. I post little videos of him on Instagram sometime of eating food in fast motion. Watching a tortoise eat in fast motion is incredibly entertaining. And I also have 2 baby snapping turtles.
You said you've had a fairly stressed out, or at least a full of content year.
Yeah.
How do you balance that work-life sort of dynamic?
Right. Well, I'll redefine the term stress, because I wouldn't say I'm stressed. It's a lot of pressure to accomplish the amount of production that we're going through. But again, I feel so lucky to be in this position. I mean, how do you grow up watching animal shows and then find yourself with a YouTube channel like we have, and then a partnership with Animal Planet? Greatest job in the world. I do this all day, every day. But balancing it is just a matter of loving what you do. I think at the end of the day, if you were to tell me, all right, tomorrow you're going to wake up and I don't know, just eat hot dogs for a living, I'd be like, man, that was a weird turn of events. Really liked going out there to teach people about animals, and there's such an incredible reward at the end of the day of any time I meet, especially younger kids, 3 or 4 years old, that will run up and hug my leg and be like, I love B-Rad the baby sloth, which was this baby sloth we worked with one time, and it's like, that's amazing to have kids excited about something like a baby sloth. So.
What's your research process like when you come across an animal you want to work with that you don't know much about or you haven't experienced stuff before? What does it entail for you to get to the point where you feel you're ready to interact with it?
It's pretty extensive. Our wildlife biologist, Mario Aldecoa, does a lot of research ahead of time. So he'll compile extensive facts that are pulled from research papers and field guides and the internet and any place, books, any place that we can find good current facts, but also historical facts. Because these days, what you read on the internet might not be actual. It's sometimes better to go back and read wildlife diaries from the 60s and 70s to get those perspectives on animals naturally being observed in their environment as compared to what somebody's written online. So a lot. And I try to be as prepared as I possibly can because there's no scripts in the field. Everything is improv, and I've got to know countless facts about 40 to 50 species per location and just be ready to go at any point in time. But sometimes you have species that you can't identify or you didn't intend to encounter. While in South America, we actually got an episode on jaguars, which I know what a jaguar is. I never had any particular interest in jaguars as a kid, but when we showed up on location and had found jaguar tracks while filming for 2 different episodes, we were like, holy cow, like there's legitimately jaguars in this environment. Let's set some trail cameras. And I don't want to give anything away, but the jaguar episode we ended up producing is so raw and so real, and that's what makes it so good. And the moments that we capture on camera are unlike anything anyone's gotten before, and not in their production quality, not this planet Earth like, oh my gosh, you documented jaguars for days, because that's not how it works. It works how we pulled it off, which was right place, right time, and pursuing tracks, trail cameras, and then finding your place in the right place at the right, yourself in the right place at the right time, and capturing that one magnificent moment on camera that you can then produce that story and tell it exactly how it played out in chronological order. Probably gonna be my favorite episode of the season, the Jaguars.
Are you ever scared being that close to
when you
wild
are
animals?
less than 10 feet from a jaguar? Here's the thing about a jaguar that none of you realize unless you've seen a jaguar in the wild. They are so much bigger than you possibly can imagine from watching them on TV. We are talking massive. It's the 3rd largest big cat on the planet, and we're 10 feet from this mother jaguar with our boat coasting on the river in complete silence at sunset, light coming through the trees. I mean, the most incredible cinematography we shot all season, and she's just staring like straight at us. And from 10 feet away, that jaguar can jump in this boat if it wants to.
That's awesome.
Their heads are like this big, bigger than like an NBA basketball. It's that crazy. So yeah, there's gonna be some cool stuff this season for sure.
Were there episodes or were there times when you went to location in search of a particular animal and just couldn't come across it, couldn't track it down?
One animal this entire season, which is amazing when you think of targeting as many species as we did to pull off an order of this many episodes. The very first episode we shot, and the target we were going after, the blue ring octopus, couldn't find it. And we were working with some marine biologist experts that had scouted locations for us like several days in advance, and they were like, yes, we found a hotbed of blue ring octopus. Like, we come in right time of day when they're getting active, and at night, like, we'll find them. Couldn't find them. Like, this crazy storm moved in, shifted the dynamics of the water, all the blue ring octopus, just like that, gone. But we pivoted and ended up finding like 3 other unintentional species that then ended up turning into their own unique episodes. And that's how it works with wildlife filmmaking. Like, you gotta roll with the punches that the environment gives you.
Has something ever went wrong, and how did you overcome that when it did?
I mean, things go wrong all the time, and when I mean wrong, I mean, the weather can shift, and all of a sudden you're getting ready to shoot a scene that you need sun and, right environment for to match a different day, and clouds and rain move in, and it's like, well, you either make it a part of the story, or you have to wait it out, depending on if you're producing B-roll or you're producing, searching for an animal. You're searching for an animal in the desert that relies on heat and dry conditions, and you have rain move in, it's going to send most of those things to hunkering down until the storm passes. So we ran into constant environmental challenges, but from a production aspect, my team, we're like the most smooth working team between people that came from YouTube and new people that we brought in for television. Like, it's fun. It's kind of like putting a sports team together. And as you produce an episode, it's like you're playing a game of the season, and you just get into sync. And the further we went, the better the content got.
I'm a little curious how the worlds of the YouTube production you have and the traditional television, how they mesh.
Whew, it's a world. It's a world of difference. I'll tell you guys, it was a big learning curve, especially in our first location we shot this season, which was Animal Planet, Australia. Sorry, I don't know why I said Animal Planet, which was Australia, and we produced there for almost 50 days. So it was a farthest location we could go, some of our toughest targets, and just getting a new team to meld together. But everybody was just quick to realize the fast-paced design of gritty YouTube connected together with some of that more cinematic filmmaking that we're pulling from television. I mean, I'd say it's almost like we're combining movies with YouTube, because it's not television in the conventional sense you think of, where it's just like this to this to this to this to this. We have a very cinematic design to what these episodes are.
YouTube is a fairly unique platform, and there really hasn't been anything like it before. And what you do is fairly unique on the platform. There really isn't anything what you do.
Thank you.
So I'm curious how you feel that you managed to come into this niche and manage to make a name for yourself when there really isn't anyone who does what you do.
The honest answer is a whole lot of doors closing early on when you've got ideas and you're pitching them, and people are like, "Oh, and who are you?" Some film kid from Columbus, Ohio. That's real cute. We like the cowboy hat because we watched Indiana Jones too, but no thanks. There's a lot of that until. What's cool about the relationship we have now with Discovery Communications is it's really come full circle, because the first break that we had even before YouTube was connecting with Discovery Digital Networks. And a guy named Jim Lauderbeck, who pretty much runs VidCon and stuff like that every single year. You guys might have heard his name. We met with Jim at something called the Stream Conference, Real Stream. The first time it was launched in Santa Monica, and I think they still have the Stream Conference, right?
Yeah,
I think so.
It was for digital produced content. Long story short is we met with Jim just before he had partnered with Discovery Digital Networks, or had sold his company to them, and we got a foot in the door. And Discovery Digital Networks said, "Look, we don't have a budget for you, but we've got a distribution platform. If you guys can raise the capital to shoot 12 episodes, we'll air them on the Animalist channel." We looked at that, we're like, Animalist? This is like Animal Planet, but in the digital realm. We got to go for this, and we got a tiny bit of seed money to go out and shoot our first digital episodes. They asked for 12, we shot 52. And what was crazy about that we didn't realize at the time, and this is a big trick to the trade of YouTube that we later learned, is it's all about consistency. So 52 pieces of content meant that's an entire year if you're putting out one a week. But we started heavy. We were putting out 3 pieces of content a week, and people were like, where is this coming from? Because this was kind of television quality as compared to what you were seeing on YouTube. People thought it was a TV show that was cut down to be YouTube. And while Animalist never ended up being a big successful thing for us, by starting the YouTube channel at the same time, that's where we saw, okay, comments from people that were watching, subscribers, views. This was a very real thing that you could actually gauge for the first time in at least our careers as creators, that people were watching it and paying attention. So it was, again, like I said, right place, right time, and recognizing both the business and the creative filmmaking side of things.
Is there anybody you would like as a guest on your show that you looked up to?
That's a great question. I can't talk too much about it, but we are developing another series that would be in a vein of taking notable people out to experience some of their worst fears in nature. So yeah, stay tuned for that. It's something that's in the works, so we've thought about it.
So I know you're a busy guy and you're all up to date with all what's going on the planet now. Did you ever dive back in time and look into paleontology or anything about the animals that used to live on this planet? Or?
Oh yeah, well we actually did an entire YouTube series called Beyond Dinosaurs, which is all about paleontology. And I have an insane love for dinosaurs. I'm probably going to make the next massive dinosaur film someday if I play my cards right. But we've done some stuff with the Jurassic franchise. We did a partnership with them called Jurassic World Explorers. So we sort of became the digital spokespeople for the Fallen Kingdom campaign, and hopefully we'll be involved with the third film, which is in production now. But the Beyond Dinosaurs series we created on YouTube is very much about following renowned paleontologists to their dig sites or to see experiences behind the scenes of museums that people hadn't seen before. Now, as far as us doing something dinosaur-oriented with Discovery Communications, again, stay tuned because good things are in the works.
Being a YouTuber, you tend to get a lot of fervent fans, if you will.
What's fervent fans?
Yeah.
What does fervent mean?
Extra.
Extra. Yeah, that's a good way to
Like
put
super fans?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've never heard that word fervent.
Yeah,
fervent
yeah.
before.
Like screaming. Oh my god, I love
Yeah,
I'll have to look that one up. That's a good
I write
word.
about YouTube a lot. And I'm curious how, when meeting with fans, how do you balance that sort of parasocial relationship where they might feel like they know you completely, and you might not, necessarily know they exist, but you know they're a fan.
Right.
And how do you deal with those interactions?
I would say really positively. Although what's great about the audience, we call our audience the Coyote Pack. They're all such great family-oriented people, it seems like. And that's when it's families and their kids. When it's what I call big kids, like people our age, it's a lot like, dude, that bull and ant was crazy. Tell me that story, And it's like there's a mutual respect all the way around for the content we're creating. I get virtually no negative. I've never had somebody come up to me and be like, I saw what you did with that bull and ant, or you like snapping turtles, or you like animals. I do not like you. Anybody that comes up and is like, I don't like animals, or you might be like, ooh, I'm not sure people like you a whole lot then. So yeah, great audience that is just so supportive of the stuff that we do.
What?
Is there a certain episode that your fans want to discuss with you more than
It's always the Sting episodes. Everybody else wants to talk about bites and stings. I totally get it. I mean, those are the most extreme moments. But again, I love to talk about the things that are not the bites and stings, and that's a big reason of why we made this jump to television. And when we sat with our team and Animal Plan before this was even a finalized thing, I said, look, I'm not going down that road of let's take bites to the next level. Nope. There was a means to the madness, and it was very much to get ourselves in the position to tell bigger stories about animals you haven't heard about, the most bizarre creatures, a lot of creatures that you misunderstand or that you fear, to really give those animals the spotlight. And it's not that rhinos and tigers and whales don't deserve spotlight, because they certainly do, but weird things like long-finned eels or alligator snapping turtles or stonefish, most people are like, a what? A stonefish? And until you see this animal, you're like, how would that ever become the star of an episode? It's just about telling the right story.
Have you modified your show over the years based on responses you've gotten from your audience members, like things like, we want to see more of this?
Yeah, I would definitely say we try to listen to the audience as much as possible. And with YouTube specifically, we have such a diversity of content, from, Coyote getting hurt, to Coyote bringing you a conservation episode, to Coyote doing something crazy like setting a world record for eating pickle pops, which I did in Thermopolis, Wyoming. I mean, it's the most bizarre thing. But now people will bring me jars of pickles when they see me because I liked pickles in a video, So it's about having as much fun as we can. But with Animal Planet specifically, it's very much just honed in on animals, encounters, the environments, the grittiness of the stories, and getting people engaged with, again, species that they just don't know a lot about.
I guess continuing with the environmentalism, like, how do you feel that your show and what you do contributes to awareness of what's going on with the environment, with the climate, things of that nature?
I obviously have my own views and opinions on everything that I don't really speak about it much publicly. We really look at our brand with Wilderness Productions and Brave Wilderness, and Animal Planet kind of shares this very similar message that we're looking to inspire people to get involved with nature and for them to make those decisions and directions on their own. We don't ever try to say to somebody, you need to believe this or you need to go out and do this. We like to give them the animal story and say, you make that decision for yourself. If you want to go in and support an environment or get involved with a conservation group or a wildlife rehab center or a zoo, that's for you to make that decision, and we're just trying to open that door to the animals. It starts with the animal, and then as humans, we make that decision as to how we're going to get involved.
Jaws or Jurassic Park?
And Jurassic Park.
No, Jaws or Jurassic Park.
Oh, Jaws or Jurassic Park. Oh man, that's a tough one. So I'll give you the quick story of Jaws. I used to make my mom rent Jaws on VHS when I was a little kid. Fast forward to the parts with the shark. pause them, and with the VHS it does this jittery, and I would trace huge pictures of the shark to then like color and put on my bedroom wall, which was pretty extreme for like a little 6-year-old kid. But Jurassic Park, I would have to say for sure, it definitely shaped my childhood and really everything that I've become today. So
guys, we're gonna probably get kicked out of here soon. If you have one more question or anything, someone to end on a really good note.
Can you take us into the wild?
Can I take you into the wild?
Yeah, take all of us.
Do a tour.
I tell you what, we are conceptualizing the exploration of the underground world
Everyone here.
of New
I'm
York
so for
City, man.
press
I bet there's
for a
some
while.
pretty cool things
Some
living,
rats.
Yeah, rats
living
and
cockroaches.
in the confines of this city. I would love to get down into the pipelines and see what's truly down there. Are there alligators down there? I'll find them if there are.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I'd love to find those Ninja Turtles.
Is there anything you want to see at New York ComicCon?
like any one thing specifically?
Anything in particular that you're interested in when you're done here?
Well, this is my first time at Comic-Con, which has been incredibly exciting. So earlier today, Mario and one of my producers and I went out and walked the floor, and I just love seeing all the artists, all the comic book work, all of the figurines and maquettes, and like I collect all that kind of stuff. So it's like a kid in a candy shop, and there's so much to look at, you can't absorb it all in, and it's just amazing to see how many people support and are interested in what this culture of. I mean, I think we started this out like, Coyote, are you a nerd? Yeah, like it's the coolest thing is to be a nerd these days and to love all of this unique artistic stuff that is movies and comics and television, and yeah, I love it. Comic-Con's been amazing so far.
Cool. Thanks, you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Wow.
Stand against the wall.
Yeah.
They're gonna get some pictures.
Yes.
of you.
Sure.
Great.
I'm sorry.